Can you be arrested without Miranda being read to you?
Can you be taken to jail?
Can you be prosecuted?
Can you even be convicted?
The answer is
Yes. And unfortunately, the answer is yes, because Miranda rule is not absolute. Even though this is one of the most important constitutional protections, it applies in a very narrow set of circumstances. In order to educate yourself, to protect yourself, and to stay out of trouble, please watch the rest of this video. Did you know that police don't actually have to read you your rights even when you are getting arrested?
Really? Don't cops have to say you have a right to remain silent?
In fact, you can be arrested, taken to jail, prosecuted, even convicted, all without a single mention of your Miranda rights.
That doesn't seem right.
In fact, the rule is that Miranda rights apply only when you are in custody, being interrogated.
So what does that mean? If a police officer just walks up to me and stops me on the street, am I in custody?
Well, I think it would be very important for you to clarify. Hey, officer, am I being arrested? Am I detained? Or am I free to go?
So what does that really mean?
So the rule is that you actually have to be in custody or its functional equivalent and subject to interrogation in order for Miranda rights to apply. That means if no one is questioning you, there is no Miranda rights violation.
So what you're telling me is that if a police officer doesn't read me my Miranda rights, doesn't ask me any questions, the arrest is still valid?
Yes, the fact that the police officer didn't read you your rights has nothing to do with the validity of your arrest, because the history of this very important protection has to do with confessions and statements against one's own interest. So if you're not being questioned, if you're not producing a statement that can incriminate you, Roland, if you're not subject to interrogation, Miranda rights are simply not applicable.
What if the police officer just walks up to me and says, hey, what are you doing there? What do I do then?
The smartest thing for you to do would be to not engage with the police officer. That's because if you're not being interrogated and you're voluntarily engaging with the police, Miranda warnings are not required to be given.
Well, if I don't engage with the police officer, aren't they just going to arrest me?
In order for you to be arrested, the police officer has to have probable cause. He has to have a reason to believe that a crime has been committed and you are the person who may have committed that crime. So don't give them that reason by talking to the police instead of remaining silent.
Well, what if I'm saying I'm just walking down the street, hey buddy, I'm just walking here. Is there anything wrong with that?
I think the most important thing to do is to remain silent. You don't know what it is that the police officer knows. You don't know what it is the police officer is trying to find out. So by engaging with the police, you could inadvertently supply them with additional information that they have been looking to gain.
So what you're telling me is anytime a police officer wants to talk to you about anything, you should just keep walking.
Not
Is that
unless,
what you're telling me?
Only if you want to stay out of trouble every single day of the week.
What if a police officer is looking for somebody and it's not me and they come up and say, hey, have you seen Joe Blow? What should I do then?
Well, the Fifth Amendment only applies to protect you against self-incrimination. It obviously doesn't apply if you're incriminating someone else or providing other information. You can exercise your judgment in deciding whether or not you want to talk to the police, but if you are concerned about generating evidence that could be used in trial against you, the best thing to do is to remain silent.
What if I'm sitting at home and a police officer calls me on the phone? What do I do then?
Miranda rights do not apply if you're being questioned over the phone. That's because when you are sitting at home, in a bar, in a car, in your garage, or even on your boat while fishing, you're not considered to be in custody. So a police officer is free to pressure you as much as he wants over the phone. He can ask you any questions he wants, and even if you confess and he never reads you your rights, it's not considered to be custody, and therefore Miranda warnings do not apply and do not have to be given.
So should I ever talk to a police officer on the phone?
That's usually not a good idea, Roland.
So what if I hear that a police officer is looking for me and I just want to go to the police officer and clear up all these misconceptions? I want to tell him, hey, I didn't rob the liquor store. What's wrong with doing that?
If you go voluntarily into a police station, if you voluntarily engage with the police, they're not required to give you your Miranda warnings, which means if you say something that later police decide to use against you, you cannot claim that the police didn't warn you that you shouldn't talk to them in the first place.
Now, what if I go down to the police station and they arrest me? What do I do then?
If you are arrested while you're at the police station, the police officer will then have to give you your rights if they want to question you. The smartest thing to do if you got arrested, whether it happened at the police station or at another location, is to assert your right to remain silent and ask to see an attorney.
Now, let's say I don't talk to the police officer and then they arrest me. They throw me in the back of the squad car. I'm driving down. I start thinking of things and I think of some way to get me out of this. I'm just going to tell the cop, hey, it was my friend Lupe that did it. Should I tell a police officer that at this time?
It's a really bad idea to re-engage with a police officer if you manage to successfully avoid incriminating yourself in the first place. That's because if you volunteer information to a police officer and that information tends to incriminate you later, it can be used against you, even if no one read you your rights.
Let's say they did read me my rights and I reinitiate contact with the police officer. At that point in time, have I waived Miranda?
Unfortunately, if you re-engage with a police officer yourself without any trickery, without any foul play, without the police officer intimating that you should do it, suggesting you should do it, or forcing you to do it, you are going to waive your Miranda rights. And even though your rights were read to you in the beginning, you will have given them up by re-engaging with the officers.
What if the police officer starts telling me that he interviewed 3 of my buddies and they all give a statement? Wouldn't I want to be giving a statement at that point in time? Why would I be the only one not to give a statement?
The smartest thing to do is to remember, you can always provide a statement to the police through your attorney. Nothing your attorney says about you, about the case, will ever be able to be used against you. However, if you personally speak to the police, your words will absolutely be used against you in any way, shape, or form the government decides is useful to them in order to build a criminal case, take you away from your family, put you in jail, and convict you. Everyone in our country has heard of Miranda. This is probably one of the most successful public education campaigns when it comes to criminal justice. But unfortunately, while most people know that theoretically you have the right to remain silent, that anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, that you have the right to an attorney, and that if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you by the state at no cost to you. Most of us have heard these rights and know these rights, but don't quite understand the circumstances where these rights might not apply. In order for Miranda rights to be applicable, a person has to be in custody, subject to interrogation. A police officer can take someone in custody, but not interrogate or question, in which case Miranda warnings will simply be inapplicable. Likewise, if you are not in custody, if you are engaging voluntarily with the police, if you are picking up a phone and answering questions, you are not subject to the protections of this important rule. If you are not being questioned by a police officer, if you're being questioned by a civilian, if someone is asking you questions and you incriminate yourself, unless they're acting expressly on behalf of the state, Miranda rights simply will not apply. Finally, you cannot sue police officers if they fail to read you your rights. And Miranda rights only apply in criminal proceedings. If your proceeding is not criminal in nature, any statement you say can and will be used against you. So it's a very good thing to remember that when in doubt, best to remain silent. Hire an attorney who can speak for you, because nothing your lawyer says on your behalf can be used against you. But anything you say can and will be used to prosecute you, convict you, throw you in jail. We know this subject can be quite complicated. So to help you, we came up with a very short list of things you can remember, commit to memory, write it down, save in your phone, and make sure you do if you have police contact to stay out of trouble. Number 1, remember, in order for you to benefit from your Miranda rights, you have to invoke your right to remain silent expressly. That means you have to tell the officer, hold on officer, at this point I am invoking my privilege against self-incrimination and my right to remain silent. If you're not sure whether or not you are in custody, remember, always confirm, am I detained or am I free to go? Phones don't count when it comes to interrogation. If you agree to talk to a police officer on a phone, they don't have to read you your rights. That means if you confess to something over the phone, if you admit to a detail that will later hurt your case, that can absolutely be used against you in a criminal case. Please, never go to the police station alone. If they really want you, they will find a way to get you there. Please do not submit to voluntary questioning by the police. That's a really bad idea. If you manage to be successful in maintaining your right to remain silent, in avoiding questioning, and not going to initiate contact voluntarily, please do not give up all the progress you've made by reinitiating contact with the police. Even if it's a very long ride to a police station or the police officer looks like he really cares about you, he doesn't. And, although this is going to be a topic for another video, please never volunteer your password to your cell phone to a police officer. Thank you. We really hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you like what you heard, please shoot us a text, send us an email, leave us a comment, like, and subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you next Tuesday.